Good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well on this Labor Day, Labor Day. Hope you're not laboring too much, although I understand that when you're in an online class, it doesn't really count. We just sort of keep going. Same for me. I just want to walk through this week's module and kind of talk to you a little bit about this idea of research. Clearly, we understand things about the history of sex education, and we understand that sex education is a discipline in terms of an area of study in the academic world, but we wouldn't have been able to know the things we know were it not for research. The interesting thing about human sexuality is that research in that field is very, well, I don't know if it's interesting. It might make sense if you think about it. It's underfunded and undervalued because people don't, not people who fund are less likely to fund for something that seems more, I don't know, recreational, I guess. But our sexuality is, of course, a health issue, a human health issue, and how our bodies function is all really important stuff to know, whether it be through the reproductive cycle or just in terms of how we experience arousal. And so those are things that have been studied, and you may have heard of like Kinsey or Masters and Johnson, very famous researchers, I've put a few other things on the module, like Nettie Maria Stevens, who is also a pioneer in sex research. So you can read a little bit about her. If we think about historically who got to make data and make data valuable, it was often men. And so she is one of the kind of unsung heroes in the sex research world. So I wanted to have you peek at her. So this is your whole module for the week. The one thing that I'm having you do this week, in addition to the posts, is your sex history. Now, I'm going to explain this to you, and hopefully you understand. And if you have questions, I want you to ask me, So I'm going to read this because I want to make sure you understand. Please find the sex history for you to contemplate. This is a private exercise that you will not be turning in. I want you to answer these questions for yourself. Pay attention to how you're feeling when you answer them, and do what you need to do to feel safe if any of these questions are at all triggering, okay? So what I want you to do here in this module that has point value, and here is what the sex history looks like, 25 points. So you need to do this exercise. You're going to do this privately. It can be, you can write it, you can reflect on it. I don't care. That's between you and your computer. What I want you to write is 8 to 10 sentences about what you learned when you did this exercise. So what came up for you? Did it help you understand anything? Did it make you think? Did it upset you? You know, those are the kinds of things that I'm going to ask you to think about as you reflect on these questions, okay? But again, you will not be turning in the answers to these questions. These are for your own information. What you will be doing is reflecting on the experience of thinking about these questions. So again, if it doesn't make sense, ask me. And then besides that, you'll also be doing a discussion on sex research, and one of the things that you'll contemplate also is how sex research and research in general has been something that has to be closely monitored, because there are historical situations in which human subjects have been exploited. So any of you going into any sort of scientific field will understand that when you're studying human subjects, there's a whole big process for getting permission. There's an ethics piece of it. You'll read all that as you're reading this chapter, and you'll read about like the Tuskegee experiment, in which the participants were not informed of what was really going on, and they were not given proper treatment. And it's a historical example of why ethics in research in general are really important. So that's what you're doing. Make sure to go to the start here so that you get all the stuff that's on the module and you know exactly what you need to do. And Yes, you're going to watch the Deadly Deception. So that is the Tuskegee experiment. So make sure to watch that. All right. Any questions, shoot me an email. Otherwise, happy researching, both self-research and within this context. Take care.